a publisher, and one day my daughter Christina asked me to write a novel with her. Well, that day was long ago, and that little girl is now an adult. But our novels live on. The Truth Seekers Mystery Series highlights a homeschool family, the Murphy teens, in an action-adventure novel that is sure to entertain as well as teach creation truths. To get your copy, visit our website at truthseekersmysteryseries.com.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey friends, and welcome. My name is Felice Gerwitz, and this is an episode of Vintage Homeschool Moms. Today, our topic is the organization hack for the busy mom, and you can do this in 5 minutes or less. Are you ready for this? Well, I hope so. And if you are in a car, no worries. I will give you the website where you can find the show notes. In fact, if you are listening on a smart device, you can see many of the show notes there. Not all of them come through. So if you want today's episode's full show notes, go to the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network and click on Vintage Homeschool Moms, or you can go to vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. You know what? Sometimes that link doesn't always work. And you can look for episode 523 on the website. Well, I have had so many successes and so many failures in organization attempts. In fact, at one point, I thought I was the most unorganized person and I could waste the most time of anyone I knew because I would spend so many frustrated minutes looking for whatever that was lost at the time. And so if you are ready to take control of your time, then this episode is for you. Before we dive in, I want you to visit our Media Angels website where you can find a range of products, planners, and other time-saving tools. We're here to support you on your journey to better time management as well as having curriculum for your homeschool journey. Well, as a busy mom, I felt that some days nothing was accomplished, and I really thrive on accomplishments. I don't know if you are like I am, and I know it's a form of pride, but I would just feel so good at the end of the day if I could accomplish something. In fact, I called it a win if I had the children clothed, fed, and safe for the day. And many times I felt frustrated because, like I said, I was wasting so much time finding lost items, to say nothing of getting to the errands or, even getting clothes washed that needed to be washed. Washing actually was not so much of a problem. It was getting them put away where the frustrations happened. And so after being super frustrated, I sat down and talked to my husband, and he said, well, just make a plan. Oh, well, why didn't I think of that? But I did. I sat down and made a plan. In fact, it came to me when I was cleaning up yet another one of my little ones spilled. You moms need to be really happy because we did have sippy cups back in the day, but they weren't as good as the new sippy cups that seem like they're indestructible and not even a drop comes out. But I know that for me, it was really an act of desperation when I took a sheet of paper, I folded it into 4 squares. On each one, I wrote something. And so the headings I used at the time were personal needs, kids' needs, must do today, and errands for the week. but it morphed into what I have as samples on the show notes. And you can download, and I called it the 4-Square Planner because it was 4 squares. And I used it each week that I homeschooled. I still do this. I still use some form of this. Even though I'm no longer homeschooling and my kids are adults, I still have a form of this that I use. And the simple act of organizing my tasks into the 4 categories just brought a sense of relief and control to my chaotic days. It doesn't matter what your headings read, it's what's underneath them that counts. And so, that was my first hack, and that is, the method of organization is hack number 1. And the second is answering a few questions. That's organization hack number 2. And for me, again, simplicity works. Number 1, what has to get done today? I would highlight that. The second part was what can wait for another day? For an example, I didn't at that time have a day to do laundry. And even though my mother-in-law suggested, she said, just make Monday your laundry day. And I told her, I said, if I know I have to do laundry on Mondays, I won't get up in the morning. I hated laundry. I've figured out a method for that too. And guess what day my laundry day is now? That's right, it's Monday, because on Monday I can get my clothes done for the week. One of my sons always liked Friday because then he had clothes for the weekend. So whatever day that is, that's your laundry day. And I could, I would always push that one off because I would always think I'd have another day. And the third was, what will make you feel better if it gets done today? Again, that sense of accomplishment. I just needed to feel like I had accomplished something. And for a long time, that one thing was getting done with school and not having it drag on. When you have a method for doing things, I think it helps you tremendously. And if you can answer these questions, and if those questions don't work for you, write your own questions. It will help you to accomplish so much more. I learned that when I stress, I can't think. And when I can't think, that's right, nothing gets done. When I was able to plan out my 4 squares weekly, the checks beside each list grew because I had all the things laid out and I could take a look briefly each morning, and it didn't take long for me to accomplish what I needed to get done. I also didn't make long, detailed lists because there wasn't a need, which brings me to organization hack number 3, and that is routines. I didn't have detailed plans because many of the things on the list were routine items we did each day. So what are those things? Well, wake up, make coffee, pray. That was usually my first thing. And then it was wake up the kids for those who were not already up. I had some kids that woke up before I did. And if they did, my kids learned that they were to play quietly until it was breakfast time. And early on, they learned that if they interrupted mom's prayer time, mom was not going to be in a good mood. So that got taught very quickly. The third was eat breakfast while mom reads a Bible story and a short lesson. And then we would start school, which was another set of schedules. And then I also had a break, and then we'd have lunch, and we'd have a little bit of a break where we did 1 or 2 chores as time permits. We finished school, and then there was time for lessons, sports, free time, and so on. When the kids were doing their thing, I had a set time to do my own thing. And that allowed me, again, to get some of the things done that I needed to do. Organization hack number 4 is errands. Errands used to drive me nuts. One of the reasons is I would think, I need to go to the grocery store. And I would load up the kids and we would go to the grocery store right then. Typically, I am a do it right now type of person and just get it done. And so I had to learn that I couldn't do that and survive with homeschooling. I had to do things in an organized way. So going on errands used to be an all-day thing, and I learned to plan for multiple errands on one day and to plan a route so that I could minimize my time out. And I think that what happened and worked really well was that I used to think about where I needed to go and plan my errands geographically. So what was the closest to my house? And if it was on the right-hand side of the road, as I'm leaving and heading that way, I would stop and do those things first, and then I'd loop back around and come home and do the things on the other side of the road. Of course, at times that didn't work. And for example, if I was leaving early in the morning to bring the kids to the dentist or wherever we were going, and I needed to go to the bank, and the bank wasn't open. So I had to rearrange my schedule. But I hated it when I was at one end of town and had to drive clear out to the other end of town. And in those days, even our traffic wasn't nearly as bad as it is now. And so, especially certain times of the year. So I would always save like grocery shopping, or if I had to get food in the freezer or refrigerator when I got home for the last thing. And now we have apps that make, auto deposits and checks that you can deposit via an app and all kinds of things. But yet, times still need to be planned out. And if you're doing household chores, plan a time for paying bills or checking emails. Do not, and I repeat, do not check emails or social media first thing in the morning, which brings us back to hack number 5. Ignore distractions. In fact, right before I came in to record this podcast, I had about 3 things pop in my head that I needed to do, and I just prayed against it and ignored it so I could get this done. A lot of times I feel like the enemy disrupts us, and it is super easy to do, right? Because these are things we want to get done. But I feel like I have to really at times struggle against what pops in my head that I want to go do rather than finishing the task that I have set forth that I needed to get done. So recognize and ignore distractions, and this is going to free up your time, because when I go to do those other things that I've jotted a note down to remind myself, then I'm going to feel free because this task was accomplished. There are things that are our weaknesses, and we're just going to have to agree that we all have them. We're all human after all. I had to learn that even with the business, I had to ignore those emails, or I would get sucked into the vortex of answering the major ones. As I would tell my husband, I have to put out all these fires, and then I'd get sucked into the vortex of trying to answer other emails that came by, and finding that I'd look at the clock and say, oh my gosh, 2 hours has gone by. When I was homeschooling and this happened, my kids didn't bother me because they knew if they did, they'd have to start schoolwork, and they didn't want to get started with their schoolwork, which meant that the day dragged on. I didn't hop on social media at all until everything was finished and I could set time for spending time on social media. And this even happens now that I'm no longer homeschooling. I don't get onto emails during the day, or I take that back. First thing in the morning, I try to wait till after lunchtime. And the same thing with social media. I tend to only look at that in the evenings. If my husband and I are watching television, and he loves that I have other things to do because he's one that will have sports on 1 minute, and then we're flipping it to a nice little show that I might like, and then we're flipping it to something else on the History Channel. So thankfully, I don't care what's on television. I would just as soon not have a television in my house if it was up to me. But, in the spirit of getting along with a man that I will be married to for 45 years this year, we definitely have compromised on many things. You know what, friends? This method takes a few minutes of your time. You're going to make a plan, you're going to answer a few questions, have some routines down, organize your errands, and ignore distractions. And I have to tell you, this has saved me hundreds, if not thousands, of frustrating hours. When people used to ask me, well, how did you have time to write all these books or create a class or host a podcast? I host more than one podcast. Now you know why. You have the inside scoop, and any one of these methods will save you time. Start small and build on them and see which, if any of them, works for you. And please let me know. Share this podcast with a friend, give me a star rating, and thanks so much for stopping by. God bless, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.